Hello, I'm Mark Ridgway. Welcome to my friends and any guests out there who are listening in. The aim of this little video of 15 minutes is just to create a quick summary to help people understand the issues behind the Australian energy transition. It's created a lot of heated debate. Just listen to the news. If you listen to progressive news sites, you get one perspective. If you listen to conservative news sites, you get the totally opposite perspective. So I'm concerned, and this video is really to help you make some sort of judgment call. So I'm sidestepping the reasons for transitioning away from coal and stuff like that, and really we are now in the process in Australia of developing a plan to transition to renewables. Now, I spent my working career planning and building computer systems, and you quickly learn that you need vision, but you also need people with their feet on the ground. They need to work together. So if you want the short version of this talk, then all I need to say is that we are currently being led by people with a passionate vision for renewable power. That's okay. But all of those people with their feet on the ground have been told to go away. It's a recipe for disaster. That's it. You can quit now. But if you want more detail to understand a bit more, listen on. So I make 3 points. Firstly, beware of politicians and models. The Australian Prime Minister is marching around the country telling us that Australia's eminent scientific organisation, the CSIRO, has a model that says that renewable electricity, a system with 80% renewables, is the way to go for Australia. It's the cheapest. But it has been disputed. So what's going on? Now, the AEMO is the organisation that creates the electricity plan, which is called the ISP. It also runs that plan. And it does so under the oversight of a government authority called the AEMC. And the CSIRO's role is purely a technical one. It's to provide data on the projected costs of alternative energy supplies. That is the infamous Gen Cost report, which you'll hear about in the news. It's important to note that this report has nothing to do with consumer electricity bills. A lot happens between the numbers in the Gen Cost report and your bill. So there are 3 things that the CSIRO have done that have got people upset. The first is to accept that the current government plan for spending on renewables is a sunk cost. The government has been supporting renewables with lots of money, certainly in the past, and still ongoing, and there are plans in place for the next 10 years to support renewables with lots of money. And the CSIRO accepts that this money is government money that's given. It's free. It's sunk cost. Now you could say that's unfair or fair. I don't know. It's up to you. But the CSIRO isn't worried about the fairness issue. It's just worried about doing the numbers, and it's done that. It's assumed that all of this money that the government is pouring into renewables is just free money. It's not to be counted. Secondly, the long-term development of consumer energy resources, that's solar and batteries on private residences, is a really big part of the plan. So private residences will buy their own batteries and solar out of their own money, and how the system will work no one knows, but this is the heart of it. So CSIRO probably correctly have said, well, this is private money, it's nothing to do with us. It's again effectively free money, but it will have a big impact on consumer electricity bills, a big impact. So it may be free in the bill, free in the Gen Cost report, and correctly free in the Gen Cost report, but someone has to pay, and it's going to come out probably in electricity bills for other people. Finally, the report has a 30-year timeline horizon. It's assumed that anything beyond that is out of scope, and people quickly pointed out that this is the time at which all the renewables collapse and die and will need total replacement. And those costs don't appear anywhere. And when you compare with traditional options, which are those systems are just reaching their prime after 30 years. There are other issues. I'll stop there. The Gen Cost report is a specialised report, totally unsuitable to make arguments about what's going to be cheapest for the consumer. Nothing to do with it. Yet our politicians are using it as such. So the use of Gen Cost report by politicians is disingenuous. I'll say that to their face. It's silly. And all I can say is that they're making fools of themselves. Strong words perhaps, but I think it's justified. Secondly, we need to balance the narrative. The heart of the debate is really about two design strategies. Always on power, always available power, which a lot of people call baseload power, versus intermittent stored power. So renewables having to store their power away for later use when the heat is on in the evening. So always available power, well understood. Most people understand that. But storage is really important to the renewable narrative because the whole system must have storage, otherwise it doesn't work. And storage is expensive, very expensive. And we really don't know how much we need. Two problems. On the expense front, you get an idea when you look at the Snowy 2 scheme. The pump hydro scheme with its transmission line will cost every electricity account holder $3,000. That's an awful lot of money. Admittedly, the system will last a long time, so it's not as bad as it looks. However, we need an awful lot of them. How much do we need? Well, we don't know. The Snowy 2 scheme provides a couple of % of our needs at peak time when it's switched on. That doesn't encourage one. We're probably going to need 50 of them. So this question of how much we need hasn't been answered. UK and Germany, which are well advanced than us, have stopped. They don't know what to do. So we're moving ahead. We're the guinea pigs. So to understand the problem, understand an engineer building a bridge. So you tell him this bridge needs to take a maximum of 100 cars. So if you as an engineer build a bridge that collapses with 101 cars, okay. So what engineers do is they build resilience into their bridges. So their bridges usually can take 200 cars easily. And that's because they've learned the lesson of Murphy's Law. The impossible will happen. Now, that applies to the grid system as well, and how much storage we need. Might need to be a lot more than what people think. That's an unknown question. The AEMO are very clever people. If they're aware of these issues, they have a solution. We don't have to store all that much, as we can model a system where we can move the power around by having transmission lines and by encouraging consumers to provide their own backup. That's the scheme. That's the consumer energy resource system. When we do this, we should have plenty. Well, whether we will or not is going to be hard to tell. We're going to build it, obviously, and we'll try it and see what happens. The most significant part of the storage plan, this CER, is a problem. So the model assumes that almost everyone with a house will have a 10 kilowatt solar system, 25 kilowatts of battery storage, plus EVs as well, connected up to the grid. And government will be allowed to take power out of these batteries as and when they wish. How that system will work is unknown. So, the current cost of this system is about $3,500 per annum per account holder, electricity account holder, that would go down this route. So they're expecting several million, 2 million to might go down this route. And that's $3,500 per annum each. That's an awful lot. But it's not money that's been counted because it's private money. But it has an impact. Yes, that cost will come down, but not by that much. It's going to flatten. Batteries are going to flatten out in due course. Well, they're already starting to. It's going to have impact down the line. Anyhow, what's missing in all of this, all this consideration, is a lack of balancing alternative narratives. It's the all renewable narrative or nothing, and this idea of narratives at 10 paces and the last one standing wins is not a good way of building electricity systems. We need to build the best of many options. I'm disappointed. But my biggest concern lies with my third point, and that is we need to rescue the poor in this system. Yes, there'll be an increase in electricity costs. Of course there will be. But the CER is going to have a big impact on the poor. So what do I say that for? We're going to end up with a system of apartheid. You will have the solar battery rich versus everyone else who don't have access to that. And the solar battery people in the current billing system will do very well. They won't pay anything, or they may use a tiny little bit of power here and there because they're connected to the grid. But most of the time they will just be off grid, so they don't pay anything. Yet, every so often, they're going to come racing for the grid because they're going to run out of power. 2 batteries is not going to be enough, and they're racing to the grid and pull power out of the grid. And the question is, now, who pays for the grid? Because the cost of the grid is actually incorporated into the cost of electricity. And these people aren't paying electricity anymore. So the answer appears to be that the poor will have to pick up the tab for the rich, unless something happens. Just let me give you an analogy just to explain what's going on here. People might not understand what I'm saying. Let's say I go to a car dealer and he says, "Oh, Mr. Ridgway, look, this car is yours, $30,000, drive away." But I come back and say, well, hang on. I'm going to sit this car in the garage all the time, and I'm going to take it out 1 day a month. So I should only pay $1,000. Isn't that fair? Well, obviously not. And the grid's exactly like that. Even though you may only come to the grid occasionally, you're going to need to pay your fair share of it. Okay, all the wires, all the transformers, because you're connected and you're going to use it. You may not use it all the time. That's irrelevant. It's your peak usage is the thing that counts. Anyhow, won't go down. That's very complicated. So the government's in a dilemma. If it needs to sell the consumer energy platform to everyone, as many people as possible, in order to make this system work. At the same time, these people are no longer paying their share of the grid, and any attempt to change the billing system to charge them is only going to discourage the uptake of the platform. The government's it's going to be in a no-win situation. Is the CER viable? I don't know. If it isn't, then the whole system falls apart. So just some concluding personal thoughts. This is all about trust. So the models say renewables are cheaper. Well, that claim's just embarrassing. We need a much more discerning debate. And I should remind our Prime Minister that he will always be remembered as the man who said that under his leadership the cost of power bills will go down by $275. In a time of weakness he said that, yes. We need to be more intelligent. We need to be more discerning and communicate with people exactly what models do and what they mean. We have different design strategies, and these people need to talk to each other, because I reckon we can work out something that is better than what we are currently planning. The best of both worlds. This idea of renewables as the winner take all and only means that the public will be the loser. And finally, the current government selling this transition as a cost-saving exercise with high chances of success and a nirvana at the end of the rainbow. Nothing could be more further from the truth. So get ready for a rough ride. And I finish with the question, and who is going to stand up for the interests of our vulnerable people?